global warming panic. It's really getting too much. It's turning Australians into helpless ninnies, panic merchants just waiting for another firestorm, or worse, for Australia's biggest city to run short of water. Now, we have had 3 years of wonderful rain. I mean, so much for this global warming catastrophe, but that's now suddenly dried up. And so here we go again, the media full of horror stories about catastrophic fire conditions caused by you know what.
Ensure that you're prepared for what could be a horror summer period.
So horror, catastrophe, and cue the hand flapping like this on the ABC today.
We've seen a range of disasters this year in fires, storms, floods, lack of sea ice in Antarctica. Some people feel really quite helpless about this. What is your advice to everyday Australians about what they could do?
Look, I think it's a common feeling to feel overwhelmed by the challenges of climate change. We all have to take a collective attitude around how we're going to deliver outcomes, and that could mean it's something as small as making sure that we're recycling to something much larger, which is, making sure your superannuation funds are ethical and, a green focus.
Seriously, our cities are threatened by fire. What can we do? Oh, get our super funds to make a gesture, not invest in coal or something. It won't actually change the climate, but could slash your retirement payout. I actually have a better idea. If we really want to protect ourselves, how about getting our complacent governments to do the proper fuel reduction burns that could save towns and lives? I mean, that happens to be exactly what just about every inquiry into every bushfire disaster for decades has told us to do. But it's like Australia's forgotten that wet years are always followed sooner or later by a dry one, and a dry one that turns all the grass and leaves that built up in the good years into fuel. I mean, you just look. New South Wales has burned off just 24% of the bush its rural fire service says needs burning. 24%. Now, I know, firefighters say it was too wet for too long to do much burning off. And besides, it is hard to get volunteer firefighters to turn up during the week. But if our governments, including the Victorian one, spent as much on burning off as they do on destroying coal-fired power stations, would be as right as rain. But you know how it is. It's much easier, sexier for our politicians to wail about global warming, and that way they can dodge the blame when everything turns to ashes. Just like they dodged the blame for allowing new housing estates to be built on floodplains. Remember that? Oh, they're flooded? Well, don't look at me. It's global warming. That's how it works. And naturally, the Prime Minister today was blaming global warming too for the dryness that is turning our bush into firewood.
The science is in on climate change, and we are facing potentially a hot, dry summer.
It just gets me, why do journalists, so many of them, let politicians get away with that excuse, Oh, it's global warming. Even the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change admits we can't blame global warming for dry spells. It said after reviewing the science, there is actually low confidence in the emergence of drought frequency and observations for any type of drought in all regions. And when you look at the data, Australia's had, in fact, more rain over the century, as has New South Wales, which is actually great for such a dry continent. But our problem now, land of drought and flooding rains, is that we have got a double whammy that's heating Australia and drying the rains. It's a natural one. It's an El Nino in the Pacific Ocean, and in the Indian Ocean, there's a positive Indian Ocean dipole. These are changes in ocean movements, and driving an electric car, forget it, it's not going to change them. But here's actually another problem that could be even worse than the fire risk if we do now get a big dry spell. And it's a danger, especially if you live in Melbourne, which is now our biggest city, because already Melbourne's dam levels, well, for all the capital cities really, they're starting to fall to below what they were last year. Here is Melbourne's dam level, for instance, the blue line up top from this year. But as you can see, it's not a problem yet. You can see it falling already, obviously, but that's not a problem yet because the recent rains have filled so many dams around the country. There's probably, couple of years, 3, 4, of dry years that we can sit out. Not a problem. But a longer drought, and we've had them, that could spell massive problems, and again, especially for Melbourne, our biggest city, because it is growing faster and thirstier than any other city. In 2009, Melbourne got a shock when its dam levels fell to just 26% full. 26%. The government had to ban people watering their gardens. Since then, Melbourne has added another 900,000 people. And Victoria is expected to add 3.5 million more by 2051. And you think of that. Millions more people, thanks to our huge immigration intake, our irresponsible immigration intake. Where is the water for all those people, for all those lawns, all those gardens, all those baths, all those washing of clothes? And you could probably ask the same of Adelaide, by the way. Where is the water going to come from? Because Victoria, for instance, last built a new dam for drinking water nearly 40 years ago, when Melbourne had 2 million fewer people than today. And we're not allowed to build dams now, right? Because Greens won't let us. It's a sin. Now, it's true that, like a lot of states, Victoria instead did build a very expensive desalination plant to turn seawater into drinking water by using massive amounts of electricity. Very costly. But then again, hello, electricity. Electricity. Isn't Victoria, again, more than any other state, running out of electricity? With the energy market operator warning of blackouts as early as this summer. Again, blame green politics for that. And what's more, that desal plant can supply only 1/3 of the water that Melbourne needs now. Only 1/3, and even less of what the city will need with a couple of million extra people coming. All those people to fill all those homes that Premier Daniel Andrews today said he had a plan to build in a hurry.
They will be about giving to this sector, giving to the market the certainty that there is both planning certainty but also the supply of land, not just to build out but to build up as well, so that they can meet that ambitious target of 80,000 extra homes each and every year for the next 10 years.
All those homes and all those gardens. Do you see the problem here? But when the dams do run low again, you just wait for some other clown to do the old Tim Flannery routine and blame global warming, not our politicians, for the lack of water for all those people that brought into the country. You know, Australia today seems a land filled with people who are stuffed with earth-worshipping climate zeal, when what we really need is firefighters and dam builders. That's what we need. Less voodoo and more can do.